Every single year, there are going to be players that are wildly overdrafted compared to where they finish at the end of the season. In today's video, we are going to try and get ahead of things by discussing players that I believe you should not be drafting in every single round of your 2022 fantasy football drafts. In reality, we are actually only going to be discussing the top 10 rounds of drafts because after the 10th round, people start reaching on kickers and defenses, and then there's only like 4 or 5 players to actually discuss in those rounds. And once you get deeper and deeper into the draft, I believe you guys should be taking more risks. So there really aren't many players that I believe you should be fading or staying away from in that range at all. So without further ado, my name is Nick Lepre, and let's do a nice deep dive into the player I'm going to be avoiding in every single round of my 2022 fantasy football drafts. We begin in round number 1 with Derrick Henry, running back of the Tennessee Titans, current ADP running back 4 off of the board at pick number 5. In the first round, it was genuinely hard to find a player that I dislike. Right now, based upon current ADP, the players going in the first round are Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, Devontae Adams, and Stephon Diggs. All of the players that I just talked about, all the players go in the first round, move the needle. But if there was one player that I am least sure of this season, it's Derrick Henry. Since Henry is a running back that relies heavily on his carry total because he barely is given an opportunity to catch passes, and when he is given the opportunity to catch the ball, the man has stone hands, so he relies on the team being very good, because if the team isn't very good, then he isn't going to be seeing as many carries, because if the team's getting their back blown out, they have to throw the ball. And if the Titans are a worse team in 2022 compared to 2020 and 2021, that we could really see Derrick Henry's usage go down because the team has to pass the ball more. He is also now getting up there in age, and we could potentially see a rushing attempt drop off because of that. There are still positives when it comes to Derrick Henry, and he could still definitely finish the year as an upper echelon running back in fantasy football. But as a top 5 pick, I would honestly rather have Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Cooper Kupp, Najee Harris, and Justin Jefferson ahead of him. And hell, if you are even feeling spicy, you could take Dalvin Cook ahead of him. So if I'm being honest with you, just based upon Derrick Henry's ADP, coming off the board right now is running back number 4. That is certainly way too high. In round 2, we get Nick Chubb, running back of the Cleveland Browns, ADP running back 10, pick 17 off of the board. While my main man, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, has a fire nickname in the second round, I personally would definitely look to stay away from him. While I would love to get him in the third round, his ADP on most fantasy football platforms does not allow that to happen. Last year, playing in 14 games, he was the RB 11 in half PPR and the RB number 10 in half PPR points per game. In terms of arguing the talent of Nick Chubb and arguing against his talent, I am not going to be doing that because I really do believe in terms of pure rushers in the NFL that Nick Chubb may be the best in the whole entire league. The problem is that he has very little pass catching upside with Kareem Hunt in town, and with Deshaun Watson not being able to play until week fucking 13, this team may not be able to rely as much on the run because they're going to be down and they're going to have to be throwing the ball, similar to what I just talked about with Derrick Henry. I also am strongly in the camp that believes that Chubb doesn't have top 5 upside, and since I want my running back that I draft in the first 2 rounds to have that upside to potentially be the number 1 running back, to be that league-winning running back, I just want to stay away from Chubb. It's very likely that he finishes in the range of RB 8 through 14, and that personally just does not interest me. My do not draft player of round number 3 is Patrick Mahomes, quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. His current ADP is quarterback number 2 off of the board at pick 31. Now, this is not meant to be a shot taken from me at Patrick Mahomes. I don't believe that just because Tyreek Hill is gone, that Patrick Mahomes is going to fall off the end of the earth. I actually think Patrick Mahomes is going to be perfectly fine and may just be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football. But the problem I have with Patrick Mahomes is also the problem I have with a lot of quarterbacks that are being drafted in the top 4 rounds. I really do believe that if you draft a quarterback prior to the 5th round, you are really hurting the depth of your players at the skill position, and every year it becomes easier and easier to just pick up a quarterback off the waiver wire every single week and play them. Or, if you don't want to do that, it's still kind of easy to find a late round quarterback that you can start in your lineup every single week, and that late round quarterback could end up being a top 12, top 5 quarterback at the end of the season. I would have used Josh Allen as an example in round number 2, but I figured talking about Nick Chubb was more important, so making an example of Patrick Mahomes in round number 3 is what I wanted to do. It is entirely possible, again, that Mahomes could be the quarterback 1 at the end of the season, but in my opinion, if he isn't, you have really hurt your team by drafting him in the 3rd round, when you could have had players that I really like Kyle Pitts, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, and James Conner, who could carry your team to a championship. Once the 5th round opens up, and if a guy like Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts fall to you, then I am smashing the draft button. But in the first 4 rounds, I think you guys should stay clear away from the quarterback position. In round number 4, we have the first wide receiver of today's video, and that is going to be DK Metcalf, wide receiver of the Seattle Seahawks, current ADP, wide receiver 18 at pick number 45. In 2021, he finished as the wide receiver 12.5 PPR and the wide receiver 19.5 PPR points per game. Though, there is a humongous difference between last season and this upcoming season in 2022. That being, you guessed it, the quarterback position is very, very different. Going from Russell Wilson to Horsecock Drew Lock or Geno Smith is like going from a fucking Lamborghini, a Bugatti, to going to a smart car. While I am almost certain that DK is going to have those games where he potentially drops 25 plus, 30 plus points and ends up winning you your week, there's also going to be games where DK Metcalf struggles mightily and might just score you 4 fucking points. And Metcalf has struggled in the past with consistency. He has been very inconsistent, but the thing was, he had Russell Wilson as his quarterback, so you can kind of talk yourself into, oh, the upside is too high for me to pass on Metcalf, but now it's Drew Lock or Geno Smith, so to me, you should definitely be staying away from DK Metcalf. In round number 5, my do not draft player is Antonio Gibson, running back of the Washington Commanders, current ADP running back 24 at pick 52. There has not been a single player this offseason who has been made fun of by the consensus fantasy community as much as Mr. Antonio Gibson. Last year, this guy was the lead back on the Commanders, who back then were the football team, racking in over 250 carries for 1,000 plus yards, as well as catching 42 passes for 294 yards and 10 total touchdowns, resulting in him finishing as the RB 10.5 PPR and the running back 19.5 PPR points per game, tied with waiver wire darling Cordero Patterson. This year, just like DK Metcalf, it appears that his world has been flipped upside down like he is the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And these news blurbs that I'm about to read you guys will slap just as hard, if not harder, than Will Smith if you believed in Antonio Gibson. A few days ago, it was reported that Gibson was practicing with the 3rd string offense and that he was working with the punt team. Typically, if you're the starting running back on a team, they don't want you taking punts. They don't want you returning kicks. In the preseason action from last weekend, he was the kick returner, and rookie running back Brian Robinson was playing with the first team with Carson Wentz up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Gibson has also been scolded by his coaches for his fumbling issues. Gibson will still be involved, but as the running back 24 in current ADP, it's absolutely fucking ridiculous that people are even considering him there. And if I'm being honest with you guys, I genuinely would rather drop the soap in the prison from Oz over drafting Gibson in the 5th round. Before we move on into round number 6, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor of today's video, Drafters Fantasy Sports. Are you looking for softer best ball contests? Look no further than our new partnership with Drafters Fantasy Sports. For a limited time, make your first deposit of at least $20 and you will get a free $20 ticket into the Drafters $1 million best ball championship. To claim your free ticket, all you got to do is click down below in the video description or use promo code Stokastic. It's been on your screen this whole time. Stokastic. If you put in 2 entries to the $1 million contest, you will also receive our best ball draft kit for 100% free, courtesy of our new partnership with Drafters. Moving to round number 6, we got Miles "Booby" Sanders, running back of the Philadelphia Eagles, ADP RB28 at pick number 71. My biggest worry when it comes to Miles Sanders is his receiving ability. Around a week ago, reports out of camps were pointing towards Sanders' receiving abilities not improving at all, and this could really allow for Kenneth Gainwell to see a lot more opportunities on the field, and especially on third down as the third down running back of the Eagles. Now, Sanders is dealing with a hamstring injury, and there are some worries that he could miss week number 1 of the season. In Sanders' absence, in preseason week number 2 up against the Browns, we saw Boston Scott score a touchdown, and Kenneth Gainwell look effective with the first-team offense, racking up 46 yards on 11 rushes. I am personally someone that doesn't like to chase injuries in fantasy football, because when you draft a player that's injured, you're already putting an injury on your team. The injuries are gonna fucking find you. They are going to hunt you down in the middle of the season. There's bound to be someone that gets hurt on your team, so I don't believe that you should be chasing injuries, and that makes me even more nervous to draft Sanders because he is banged up. I also really like running backs going later than Sanders, like Devin Singletary of the Bills, Cordero Patterson, Rashad Penny, and Chase Edmonds, to name a few. So I am basically never going to draft Sanders because, in my opinion, his ADP is out of whack and it is way too high in the 6th round. In round 7, we move to the TikTok king JuJu Smith-Schuster, wide receiver of the Kansas City Chiefs, current ADP wide receiver 33 at pick 79. Right now, JuJu is currently being drafted well ahead of his teammates Sky Moore, who is wide receiver 51, MVS Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who is wide receiver 53, and Mecole Hardman, wide receiver number 60. He is also currently banged up, dealing with a knee issue. The team seems to be relatively positive. Andy Reid seems to be positive that he's going to be good to go for week number 1. Though, Peter Sweeney did report that JuJu told a fan that his knee is getting better. And while the way I said it and the way you would read it, his knee is getting better, you'd think that sounds good, but the way Peter Sweeney kind of talked about it, it didn't seem that JuJu himself was super positive that he kind of turned the other corner and is going to get better very fast. Now again, we're still about 2 weeks away from the season, but this does still worry me. Last year was basically a wash for JuJu because he only played in 5 games. Earlier in his career, this was a guy that people are talking about. This is the future of the NFL. This is Antonio Brown 2.0 because he's on the Steelers, and he really only lived up to that hype in his rookie and sophomore season. The thing is that we haven't really seen that hype come to fruition over the last 3 seasons. Now in Kansas City, the upside is certainly there, but I personally would rather just wait a few rounds and hop on the discount of the other Chiefs wide receivers, who I discussed a little bit earlier, who I think could definitely outscore JuJu Smith-Schuster. In round 8, we got Tony Pollard, running back of the Dallas Cowboys, RB32 right now at pick number 85. Despite Jerry Jones declaring to the fucking universe that Ezekiel Elliott has to be the focus of the running game this season, and head coach Mike McCarthy calling Zeke a keystone player on this team, people continue to be all aboard the choo-choo, the Tony Pollard train. I understand that Zeke burned you last year, right? But he was playing with a torn PCL for a lot of the season, and he was still able to rack up over 1,000 rushing yards and 10 total touchdowns. Even when Zeke was banged up, Pollard was unable to truly take over, and Zeke was running like he had his feet in fucking molasses, like he was in quicksand or something. He wasn't running effectively at all, and Pollard only saw 130 rushes for 719 yards with 39 receptions and 337 yards with 2 total touchdowns. Unless Zeke suffers an injury that takes him out some serious time, a season-ending injury, I'm not rooting for injuries. If he doesn't get injured, then I really think Tony Pollard is being so overhyped, when in reality, all he is a glorified handcuff. In round number 9, we go with Kenneth Walker, Ken Walker, depending on which website you're drafting on. His name's a little bit different, but Kenneth Walker, running back of the Seattle Seahawks, ADP RB36, pick 100. Around a month ago, there was a lot of talk about how Rashad Penny was looking to start the season as the clear number 1 running back. I saw a report that it might be 90% in favor of Rashad Penny, 10% of the snaps going to Kenneth Walker. That might have been a little bit crazy, but it was looking like Penny was going to be the fucking guy. And some would have brushed off that news and said, you know what? Let's push that narrative. Eventually, Walker's going to break away later on in the season, and he's going to surpass Penny for the lead role on the team. Now, we are sitting in late August, and head coach Pete Carroll is telling us that Walker's hernia injury has left him with no timetable to return. Previously, Carroll was thinking, and he was basically saying that he was certain that Walker was going to be good to go for week number 1. But now, this appears to be less and less likely. And I believe if Rashad Penny gets off to a very strong start, that he could just take this role as the number 1 running back and run with it all season. And unless he gets hurt, I think Kenneth Walker is going to struggle to see a significant amount of time on this team to where he is worth it in round number 9. And we've also seen in the past that Pete Carroll doesn't give a fuck where he drafted a player. He's just going to play the best player possible. And if Penny's better than Walker, Walker will ride the pine. Not necessarily the whole season, right? Because if he's healthy, he's going to play. Obviously, right? You don't draft a guy not to play him, but he's not going to see enough usage to be fantasy valuable. In round number 10, we close with Mike Gesicki, tight end of the Miami Dolphins, ADP tight end 12 at pick 111. And my boy Mike Licky on my Gesicki is one of the most talented tight ends in the NFL, in my opinion, in terms of pass catching ability. And his 6'6", 240+ pound frame has proved to be a danger to defenses across the league. The issue here has little to do with how good of a receiver Gesicki is, who had over 100 targets, 780 receiving yards last season, and it has everything to do with the system. Under new head coach Mike McDaniel, the team needs a tight end that is going to be able to block. Gesicki has struggled mightily when it comes to that fast of the game, and there are even reports right now that are saying that Gesicki is less of a focal point in this offense from the beat reporters. And mix all of this with the addition of Tyreek Hill, and Gesicki is likely to fall out of favor in terms of fantasy football. Sure, he has the upside to score a touchdown or two in some games, and that is definitely possible, but I think Gesicki is going to be very unreliable this season, and at his ADP of tight end number 12, I think you want some more reliability than what Mr. Gesicki is going to be able to give you. And there's also been some news that the Dolphins might be looking to trade Gesicki, and this isn't just, they talked to one team. They're saying they talked to multiple teams about potentially trading him because he is not able to block right now. And again, if you can't block, you're not going to be able to stay on the field, and things are going to go down the shitter when it comes to Mike Gesicki. So, that about wraps it up. Thank you guys all so much for watching today's video, and let me know down below in the comment section what you guys thought about these players. Are these players that you are looking to draft, or players that you're looking to stay away from? Or maybe these are just all players that you're a little bit iffy on. You might draft them in some leagues, you might fade them in other leagues depending on their ADPs. Let me know all of that down below in the comment section. I love you guys all so much. Please make sure to use promo code Stokastic over on Drafters. It would help us out a ton. And you know what else helps us out a ton? Hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it a ton. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy.